Why do all electric cars look so ugly? Take a look at the Volvo 740. This is the most car you're ever gonna get. It's beautifully square and angular. It's so shapely. If you ask a kid to draw you a car, they'll draw you a 740. Now, look at the BMW, what's it called? BMW i Go-Kart? The problem with the Go-Kart is the problem with all the other electric cars ever made. They're not electric cars. They're just not internal combustion cars. The difference between an electric car and a combustion car is the way that it's powered. So that's an engineering difference. And the engineering doesn't really inspire the design to do anything unique. Like when you look at a steam locomotive, you can see that it's kind of powered by steam. It's got a bunch of vents on it and stuff. It looks like it's made out of heavy iron, like there's a lot of pressure in there building, pushing the train forward. But what's the difference between this combustion car and this electric car? The point of designing something is to immediately let you know what it is. A teapot has this big handle on it, so you know that you're supposed to grab it. It also has a spout, so you realize that you can pour out of it, and there you go, that's what a teapot does. The design lets us map a personality onto the item. This is called affordance, and it's a huge part of industrial design. It's why every doorknob or door handle looks like it would fit in the palm of your hand, because it does. So how do we let people know that an electric car is actually electric? The closest thing we have right now is the lack of a front vent. In a combustion engine car, you have a vent at the front to take in air, which cools the engine so it doesn't fucking melt. But electric cars don't have an engine in there. So the designer puts a big intentional shield in front to say, hey, so this is like an electric car and it's really cool. The problem is, this isn't design, this is undesign. This isn't taking electric cars in a certain direction. This is just looking at combustion engines and saying, we're not doing that. If we look at all these cars, they're all this. They're all just this undesign. This is the Hyundai Ioniq 5. Angry car. This doesn't really say that this car is electric. It just doesn't have any front vents. This could just be a really spaced looking combustion car. Now, why is this a problem? When hybrid engines started becoming a thing in like the whatever early 2000s, I don't care. Saab wanted to have their own hybrid engine, but of course GM wasn't giving them the funding for that. They developed this thing called biopower instead. And what biopower is, you can basically just fuel it with whatever and it'll just run. But here's the thing. If you look at an actual Saab and you see like biopower on it, you look at that and you say, oh, biopower, eco-friendly, right? Maybe it's running on, I don't know, animals. But it's still running on 85% gasoline and 15% rapeseed oil. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just optics. If I'm a white liberal and I'm putting down several years worth of wage in buying a luxury vehicle, I need my neighbors to instantaneously recognize it's electrical and that I'm better than them. Like if you look at a Porsche hybrid and it says hybrid in big silver letters on the back, you haven't actually told me it's a hybrid through the design. You just explained it to me. So the Kia EV6, right? This is one of the newer ones. And it's very, it's very Syd Mead. Syd Mead is one of those guys that like inspired everything that you like to look at. In the 80s, he was in there, Blade Runner. A lot of aesthetics were taken from him. I think the Citroen XM was inspired by him probably. Basically the kind of stuff that we see now. It's really slick. There's a lot of chrome. There's a lot of clean, empty surfaces. There's a lot of minimalism. And if we look back, we see that it's a very similar kind of thing. These sort of panoramic surfaces with these cool metal shapes. And all of it is blended to look a little bit kind of disproportional. It looks a little spaceshipy. And I think the best example of that is just the back. There's like an arms race now to make the most stupid looking rear taillights for cars. So I don't know who started this and I don't care. But Porsche upped the arms race by basically doing the Terminator thing. You have these big giant scanner barcode things, right? I fucking hate Pinterest so much. They look kind of like lasers. I think that's the point. And so now everything is gonna do this. This is unique. This is different. This is kind of spacey. And there is some actual inspiration going into this. The Countach, for example, which is one of those really legendary cars because it kind of inspired how all supercars look, I think. If I'm wrong, don't comment. If you know, I don't care. I'm not gonna read that. It also is of this sort of retro sci-fi aesthetic. But the difference here is that this is something that's made to look aerodynamic. The main design point here is just to make it look different from combustion cars, which again is more undesigned than design. Even though it optically looks different, there's not actually any change from how you would normally make a normal combustion engine car. It still has the diffuser a bit and the tailpipe a bit and then sort of the trunk with the bar light, and it's just the same as any other car. It has no part of its electric heart on display. So you might be asking, what would be an electric car that would actually look like an electric car? The short answer is that it hasn't been designed yet. But there's a couple of things that maybe hint to what the future might look like. This is the original Tesla Roadster, basically the progenitor for all current electric cars. And they basically ripped off Porsche for this design. But there's one important part about this design: aerodynamics. In one element, the Teslas actually tell you that they're not combustion engine cars because they're very, very sleek. The more aerodynamic a vehicle gets, the less the air will be slowing it down. This is one way of attacking the biggest problem right now for electric cars: range. Here's where we get to the Mercedes electric cars. Now, I know about Mercedes. But look at the two big things that they're doing here. First and foremost, instead of just putting a blacked out grille, they're actually using this newly acquired space for a new design element. And so they had this almost sort of iron fascist iconography, which I think looks awesome, behind this glass sweeping thing, so it looks kind of like a display case in a museum. In addition, this car is super aerodynamic, and you can get a pretty good idea of that from just watching any video of it. All of this is to save charge. And so it's going for this modern Mercedes aesthetic, which is very much like kind of like a stormtrooper helmet. It's just very, very slick, kind of like I mean, if you think about it like a Bionicle mask, it's kind of like that, especially the rears. I mean, look at that. That looks like a straight-up guy out of Star Wars. The new Fiat 500 is just electric now, and it's still the same car for lesbians. It hasn't changed at all. The difference now is that it has this sort of big silver 500 in the front, which, I mean, it's the same car. You know, you can't tell that it's electric. The Volvo C40 is the XC40, the tiniest Volvo SUV, but it has this shield in front of it. Also, it has this kind of hatchback roof, which, I mean, I guess is more aerodynamic. I don't know. Peugeot also have their 208 and 2008 platform, but with electric engines and batteries, and it just looks the same. Jaguar, who cares about English cars? Okay, so Volkswagen is kind of interesting because they're actually trying to be different. The ID.3 is their tiniest electric car, I think. I'm not gonna look it up. And while you could be forgiven for thinking this is just a Golf platform, it is actually its own thing from the bottom up. And it is way more aerodynamic, as you see with the nose right there. Like, look at that. Imagine you running your hand over it like it's an Orca. That'll probably feel pretty good, I think. But again, somebody would have to tell you that this isn't a combustion engine car. Nothing about this particularly says that it runs on electric power. And the ID.4 is the same thing, but just bigger, while still not really having like a unique design anything. Like, nothing about this I think is particularly interesting. Most offensively is the Volkswagen Buzz, which is a relaunch of their regular classical, whatever it's called, Volkswagen, old bus for retired people. Yeah, that's the one. So it's just this one, but it's electric now, and it looks like something out of like the Buzz Lightyear movie. And again, it's kind of sleek and aerodynamic, but like it just has none of the charm of the original. So that's pretty unfortunate. You know what? I'm gonna rate Volkswagen 0 out of 10. BMW, you can see that they are doing their traditional nostril thing in the front, but this is not a fucking petrol-powered car, man. It still has the side vents to blow fake air onto the fake wheels. I just think that is offensive. BMW, I don't like their go-karts. Full stop. EV6, it just looks kind of chunky. I don't know. It doesn't really have any appeal to me personally. Like, if you imagine a bar of soap in your hands, and then you carve it down until eventually your bar of soap looks exactly like an EV6. Now just imagine running your hand over this bar of soap. There isn't really any unique contour to it. There isn't really any silhouette, any shape to it. Compared to some other good designs, you have the Cross-Country here, right? This is the biggest Wolksvagen. I see a ton of these because I live in Sweden. They have this low profile. They sit really close to the ground and they're really wide. So when you meet one in real life, they really look like a little tiny tank. They look really stable. They look really safe. They look like they're very roomy and comfortable. And that's exactly what Volvo is trying to do. They create roomy, safe, reliable vehicles. So the design of the vehicle tells you everything you need to know about the engineering, even if you know nothing about cars. Let's move on to the Polestar, which is actually Volvo's electric car. Now, I like what they've done with the backlights. That looks pretty cool, actually. And the logotype looks pretty great. And it again has that chunky V90 thing going for it, which is Volvo's thing. They do bricks. But look at this fucking front. What the fuck is this, man? That is straight up an enemy out of The Binding of Isaac. Like, look at The Binding of Isaac bosses. Tell me that's not a... Look at this. Look at this. Look at the teeth. That is a Binding of Isaac boss. Alright, so that's pretty offensive. They are coming out with a Polestar 3, and it does have the teeth thing, but you know what? It's kind of mean now. However, they're doing now this, you know, this is interesting. This is the Polestar Precept, and this is a concept car, but this is actually how they want the finalized car to look. This isn't peacocky. And you have the Polestar 3 lights there, but it actually has this unique kind of look to it. It looks very geometrical, sort of akin to the regular Volvos, but it has these new little tiny things here that looks almost like, it looks kind of like a blueprint with these cutouts that are very intentional, and those are the actual handles and stuff. And to be completely honest with you, I think these are just like the straight up best backlights in the entire biz right now. Like, this looks awesome. Imagine running your hand over that, just the smooth side like enamel and then just the glass. I think that would feel pretty good to touch. This is getting a little more electrical. This is a little more unique. I haven't really seen this before. It does have this suicide back, you know, front hinge, back hinge opening door, so, and there's no central supporting pillar. So if somebody T-bones you and everybody else in the car is gonna die, which is very Syd Mead. I mean, again, it's very futuristic. They actually have some designers working there. So that's the Polestar. Renault, are they still making cars? Ford Mustang. So okay, this is an L, I think, in my book. So here's the thing, right? The Ford Mustang has for a very long time been like a respected American muscle car, and at certain points in time it's been very good looking, but it's always been a petrol powered car. But Ford realized they couldn't release an electric car with the Ford brand on it, so they put their luxury brand name on it, Mustang, and they just made it a Mustang. Shouldn't they have just made another another horse brand. If you're a fan of my man OJ Simpson, you know that my man whipped a Ford Bronco, and you know what? A bucking Bronco that is an actual type of horse. Why couldn't they just have made like the Clydesdale? The new Ford Clydesdale Mach-E, wouldn't that make a lot more sense? You know what? I'm not done. Same thing with the Jaguar. Like, why couldn't they just make a separate brand? Every single English car is owned by the Germans, right? Because they have English, I guess they just suck at making cars. Or it's because the Germans just control trade through the European Union. So why couldn't the Germans just have made a separate brand? You know, I mean, I don't know, Leopard? We had a steam-powered era. Then came the internal combustion engine. Now is the time for electrical engines. It's time to be a little bold and make something truly new to reflect that. Anyways, Tesla. Who cares? Skoda. Again, this is literally just their regular SUV, but it just has this Hitler mustache. Like, what the fuck? They're turning the front into lights now, like into headlights now. So they're thinking a little bit like Mercedes, like what can we actually do with this new surface to make it communicate that it is electric? Look, I like Skoda, but this is not a good looking front. This doesn't look good. And the light up Hitler mustache, I think is a great step in the right direction, but it's just not really doing it. Anyways, BMW iX. Okay, this I think is actually okay. You know, I was going in here to defend BMW, and yeah, can I change my mind? You know what's extra bad? BMW has this blue in their logo, right? That, in my opinion, I don't think it fits. So they're trying to force this blue element into the rest of the cars. If you look at the i3, sometimes like the nostril is blue, or like there's these blue lines going under it for some reason. So electric cars specifically, they don't have exhaust pipes because there's no fucking emissions from it. That's the point. Why are you pointing it out like this? Why are you specifically being like, hey, this car doesn't have it? You could have actually used the surface really creatively and done something new with it, instead of just doing undesign and pointing out what the car doesn't have. People will notice that it is an electric car, and it's a pretty decent virtue signal, but is this the best you could really do? This looks fucking terrible. Just remove the blue here, and this looks so much more consistent. There are too many colors here. The reason I'm trashing all these cars is because there's been times in the past when cars looked fantastic, and I think we could have another time like that again. And this is a time when, like, electric cars are coming, and they're gonna be the mainstream thing pretty soon. So now we can influence these manufacturers to stop making cars that just look like rip-off combustion cars. Audi. Whatever, we already talked about that. Okay, so this is kind of cute. This is the Honda E, and it's whatever, it's a Honda, who cares? What they decided to do here specifically is that, like, okay, so electric cars, they don't need a ton of stuff in the front. So they just have two central circular headlights. It is a smaller kind of silhouette. It's a little cute. It's something you kind of would imagine Mr. Bean to drive. And instead of having this whole front thing malarkey going on, it just has this little tiny viewport. So it looks at the end, it looks like it's looking at you. It looks like Wall-E. It's kind of cute. I actually don't mind this. This is a little more unique. It doesn't necessarily tell you that it's a electric car until you look inside the interior and you realize, what the fuck is this? It has like a bunch of screens, and then it has like these rear view mirror cameras, which is high FOV, which looks weird, but it actually kind of makes a lot of sense if you've ever been in one of these, or maybe you're poor, I don't know. And this is also making use of the fact that it's electric. It doesn't have a gearbox, so there's a bunch of room here, kind of like an old Volvo Amazon, where it's just like two couches that you sit in, basically. I don't mind this. The ID3 has a similar cute thing with its interior. I approve. This is not too bad, although it's not necessarily saying that it's electric just yet. It's starting to get there. It's starting to say something. I like that. Okay, Tesla. You know, once it was pointed out to me that these kind of look a little bit like a vibrator, like it has sort of this smooth silicone thing, I can't unsee it. And the cat eye design to it has this feminine quality to it that makes me look, I see a lot of Teslas because I'm a Swede. So there's a lot of sweet-hearted liberals who buy a luxury car because they think that they're saving the environment. It makes me a little uncomfortable and horny, which I don't know what to think about that. Porsche take. Okay, so Porsche, I do like that. That looks pretty sick though. Whatever. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to say is that right now the Mercedes-Benz EQS is the closest we have to like a proper electric car. This is kind of trying to make an own unique aesthetic based off the fact that it doesn't have a combustion engine inside of it. And I really respect that, and I hope that they will continue evolving and we'll start to see new ideas. Not like the light up Hitler mustache though. Let's do less of that, please. Thank you. If you are currently wearing an adult diaper like me, then consider liking and subscribing and ringing the bell and peeing a lot. Just pee. Fill your diaper up. Go ahead.